Hello, Realtors, and welcome to the SCR Update. This is your go-to podcast for what's happening in the world of real estate and how it impacts you and your business. This is episode 402, and today is August 17th. As always, I'm your host, Nick Kremydas, CEO of the South Carolina Realtors. Before we jump in, let me remind everyone that yes, we are now officially live on Apple Podcasts. Please go onto Apple's service, hit the subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and help make the SCR Update the #1 real estate podcast in South Carolina. Today we've got a packed show covering a major judicial victory for property rights, more additional crucial regulatory guidance from the Real Estate Commission, and another legislative win for South Carolina home and property owners. So let's dive right in. Let's start first with a landmark court decision. Folly Beach, the Folly Beach short-term rental ordinance struck down last week. A major victory. This is coming out of Charleston County Circuit Court regarding Folly Beach's short-term rental ordinance. Last week, the court granted partial summary judgment in favor of property owners, ruling that the city's short-term rental cap and percentage-based rental permit fees are invalid. Now, this is a huge win not only for the plaintiffs, but for all property owners across the town. The short-term rental cap had artificially depressed property values and even stalled some real estate sales in a beach town where owners often count on short-term rental income to make home ownership feasible. Without that cap, there is renewed optimism that the market can rebound. The illegal nature of the rental registration fee has significant implications for the city. As you may know, it collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in those fees over the past few years. Now, notably, the city of Folly Beach posted on social media over the weekend that it intends to appeal the court's order. That's no big surprise. The formal deadline to appeal is 30 days from that order last week, or 30 days from the date of an order ruling on a motion to reconsider. That'll probably take place first. But we'll continue to track this case closely as it progresses and keeping you up to date. But this should put all local government on notice. You can't trample on private property rights. You've got to respect property owners, and these artificial caps, when there were no rules in place before, deserve scrutiny by our legal system. And frankly, these property owners that have been impacted in Folly should be compensated for their losses over the last few years. So issue number 2 today is some new guidance letters from the Real Estate Commission. They've issued 2 important new guidance documents that every licensee, every broker in charge makes sure that they review. Now, the first deals with limited market exposure listings. Now, this was a topic that I talked about on our podcast a little bit at length last week. And this is where we talked about, what is a listing agent's duty to a seller when discussing the pros and cons of taking a property off market. Now, the Real Estate Commission has issued this guidance again regarding office exclusives, pocket listings, and some call them off-market listings as well. While seller-directed limited exposure remains legal under South Carolina law, the Commission emphasized that broad public marketing is generally in the seller's best financial interest and best supports fair housing goals. Licensees recommending limited exposure bear the burden of proving that it was done solely in the seller's best interest, and informed written consent is expected. Now, again, Realtors, the guidance from the Commission does not prohibit limited or off-market listings. but instead it reminds licensees, it reminds all of us of your duties that exist under South Carolina real estate license law. Now, when you're recommending these types of strategies, you've got to keep in mind those duties. Now, South Carolina's real estate licensing laws, federal and state fair housing laws reflect strong public policy that favor open, competitive, and non-discriminatory housing markets. Broad marketing for residential property generally promotes those objectives. It kind of makes common sense, right? You're exposing those properties to the greatest number of qualified purchasers, encouraging competition, increasing transparency, and reducing opportunities for unlawful steering or discrimination. Accordingly, the Commission believes that broad public marketing for residential property will ordinarily be more consistent with both a seller's stated goals and the public policy that favors equal housing opportunity, and understanding that and recognizing that the seller may have particular circumstances that reasonably warrant a more limited marketing strategy. Now, licensees recommending a limited market exposure bear the responsibility of demonstrating that the recommendation was made in the seller's best interests and not primarily to advance the interests of the brokerage or its licensees. Now, the guidance is intended to assist licensees in understanding that the seller's right to that the seller has let me rephrase it this way. The guidance letter wants to make sure that, number one, licensees understand that the sellers still have a right to choose their marketing strategy. Remind licensees of their duties, their statutory duties to the seller. Again, emphasize the importance of transparency and what informed consent means, and remembering that fair housing considerations are associated with limited market exposure. Now, the Real Estate Commission is likely to release a disclosure form that will be a voluntary form for licensees to use. As soon as we get a copy of that, we'll certainly share that and include that in the SCR library. But the form is intended to do two things. Number one, make sure the seller understands that an off-market listing can have some good results and some bad results, and the form will basically give the pros and cons of what happens with an off-market listing. And number two, for agents who do use this as part of their marketing with their clients, it makes sure that they have secured the informed consent from the seller. It's in writing, it's in the file, and their documentation is complete. The second guidance letter that the Real Estate Commission issued last week deals with kind of a rare situation, but it happens more often than you think. What happens when a licensee passes away? Unfortunate circumstance. How are those commissions handled during an active transaction? A property closes, the agent passes away during that transaction period, and this guidance letter is intended to provide some guidance in these unique kind of specific situations. Because commissions are earned by the brokerage, not individual licensees, entitlement to the compensation depends on the specific terms of the agent's independent contractor agreement. And that determines when the commission is legally earned by the agent. In addition, to comply with laws against paying compensation to unlicensed individuals, earned funds must be paid directly to the deceased licensee's estate or personal representative. So pretty clear direction in those unfortunate circumstances when a licensee passes away. So check those out. Tyler, Mike, who are on the board today, thank you guys for all the work you're doing behind the scenes to get this podcast out. let's make sure we include links to these guidance letters in the comments. The third topic I wanted to cover with y'all today is an important legislative victory. The state budget was finally approved by the General Assembly. It's hard to believe. I remember when state budgets were $4 and $5 billion. The 2026-2027 budget is now at $15.7 billion, B with a B, for the state. The spending plan now sits on Governor McMaster's desk. He has until today to issue any line item vetoes. My understanding is that at 1 p.m. today, a little bit later this afternoon, the governor will be issuing his vetoes. One of the items in the budget, which we were closely watching and advocating for, has to do with seniors, tax relief for our seniors. The budget includes a landmark increase in the senior homestead exemption, raising it from $50,000 to $75,000. That's a 50% increase and an $81 million impact to the state. This provision is going to deliver $81 million in direct property tax relief to eligible South Carolina seniors every single year, helping keep longtime residents in their homes, and these are residents typically that are on fixed incomes. It helps keep them in their property as we continue to see property values grow and increase all across the state. I want to thank, number one, all of our legislators in the House and Senate that voted to approve, that advocated and supported this property tax relief for our seniors. I want to thank all of our realtor members who made calls and advocated and did all the grassroots work to help make this happen and to secure this incredible realtor win. We were told months ago that the Senate, this issue kind of was started in the South Carolina Senate. The House had a different priority in the budget, and we were told that there was not going to be any deal between the two. But I want to thank all of the realtors that pushed hard, and thank all of our legislators who at the end of the day came together to address property tax relief for our seniors. Big win this past session. And I have to tell y'all, I'm really proud of the work we did this legislative session. I'm going to ask you to check out the legislative report, our session end guide that gives you a comprehensive breakdown of all the realtor wins during this past session. So let's, Mike, I think it's time for a quick Don't Do That segment. All right, it's time for Don't Do That, and this one is addresses an issue that's a huge relief for millions of small business owners, LLCs, and other small business all across the country. But, Mike, Tyler, this week I'm not going to direct this Don't Do That to our realtor members. Instead, I'm going to address this to the federal government. This is probably going to put me on some watch list somewhere. So I'm taking one for the team, guys. And, if you feel like you've had regulatory whiplash over the FinCEN, the Corporate Transparency Act, the FinCEN rules, you are not alone. For the last several years, the federal government has had small business owners literally running around in circles. First, they were told that every business LLC in America had to hand over personal ownership details. The deadline, I believe, was January of 2025, or they would face massive fines and possibly even criminal penalties. But then the federal court stepped in and blocked it. Then the Supreme Court lifted the stay, lifted the block. Then another court came in and said, hey, we're going to stay this again. We're going to hold it again. It was an on again, off again, on again, off again situation, leaving millions of entrepreneurs and small businesses caught in the middle of this bureaucratic confusion. So to the U.S. Treasury, here's my message. Don't do that. Stop messing around with small businesses. Main Street business owners, real estate professionals, real estate firms are just trying to run their business, create jobs, serve their clients. They don't have time to spend years tracking court injunctions, contradictory guidance, and these moving regulatory goalposts. I know many of our small businesses paid fees to their accountants, to their lawyers to fill out this paperwork. You know, making these small businesses jump through these legal hoops, spend extra money, again, under threat of these federal penalties, only, you know, at the end of the day to pull the rug out and say, hey, we're deleting the data, is no way to treat the backbone of the American economy. The permanent end to this FinCEN reporting for domestic companies and the deletion of U.S. data is a win. And if I've kind of jumped the headline here, the headline here is, you know, FinCEN officially was axed last week. Maybe I should have led with that. Mike, I was so eager to get on my soapbox. But the lesson here for Washington is simple. Stop treating small business owners like regulatory test subjects. Keep the rules clear, stable, and leave Main Street alone. All right, so that was fun. My phone was already ringing. I'm afraid to answer now. But before we wrap up, a couple of announcements. I want to make sure that everyone has the SCR Business Unusual Conference on their calendar for next month. As you know, real estate isn't business as usual anymore. It's time to adapt, innovate, and thrive. Please join us at the SCR Business Unusual Conference to gain actionable legal insights, market forecasts, and high-impact strategies designed to keep your business ahead of the curve. Now, you should attend to get direct updates on industry practice shifts, state compliance issues, learn practical tools to scale your production and your business, and of course to network with top producing agents and brokers statewide. And Mike, we announced our keynote speaker last week too, right? Jared James, popular real estate influencer, is also going to be hosting at least one breakout session, right, during the event. So I would encourage you to check us out at screaltors.org and lock in your seat today. Since you're already online registering for Business Unusual, I'm going to remind you one more time, head over to Apple Podcasts, find the SCR Update podcast, and hit that subscribe button. Follow the show, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with the other agents in the office. Help us make SCR Update the #1 real estate podcast in South Carolina. So Mike, I think we're going to wrap it up for this week. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Realtors, work smart, stay ethical, stay realtor strong, and we'll catch up again with you next week. Take care, everyone.